Ukraine has once again demonstrated how modern warfare is not just about firepower. It's about intelligence, timing, and creativity. In a move that stunned analysts and military observers alike, Ukrainian forces executed a carefully orchestrated strike on a critical Russian dam in the Belgorod region. What looked like a simple drone attack quickly spiraled into a tactical masterstroke that reshaped the entire situation on the front lines. The strike triggered a flood that swept across Russian defensive zones, leaving vehicles submerged, trenches ruined, and entire units cut off from their supply routes. The incident occurred at the Belgorod Reservoir, a key structure in Russia's Belgorod Oblast, just across the border from Ukraine's Kharkiv region. This area has long served as one of Moscow's most important staging grounds for launching attacks into Ukrainian territory. Throughout the conflict, Russian artillery and mechanized units have repeatedly used Belgorod as a springboard for offensives into Kharkiv and Luhansk, firing volleys across the border and retreating back to safety. Ukraine's military command understood that if it could disrupt the infrastructure that supported those operations, it could effectively weaken the enemy's grip on the border. The dam became the perfect target. The strike was timed with precision. Reports suggest Ukraine's forces used a combination of guided munitions and drones to hit key structural points of the dam. The first wave damaged the crest and control mechanisms, while a second follow-up attack widened existing cracks. Within hours, water began pouring through the damaged sections, flowing downstream at tremendous speed. The once controlled flow of the reservoir turned into a deluge, sweeping through Russian defensive lines positioned near the Shebekino district and the Vovchansk axis. For Moscow's troops stationed there, the flood arrived without warning. Trenches turned into muddy graves, roads vanished beneath sheets of water, and armored vehicles found themselves stuck in collapsing terrain. Soldiers who had been preparing for another push toward Ukrainian positions were suddenly struggling just to stay afloat. Within a day, large sections of the Russian front were paralyzed. The Belgorod Dam strike wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of Ukraine's broader effort to stall Russia's ongoing campaign to capture the border city of Vovchansk. Once home to over 17,000 residents, Vovchansk has been reduced to ruins by months of heavy bombardment. Yet despite the devastation, its value to both sides remains enormous. Sitting right on the border, Vovchansk offers direct access to vital roadways like the T-2104 highway, which links the region to Kharkiv and deeper Ukrainian territory. Whoever controls the city gains a powerful logistical advantage. It's not just a battlefield prize, but a strategic launching pad. Russia's leadership has been desperate to claim any major success after months of stagnant progress and mounting losses. Its offensive toward Vovchansk was meant to be that victory, a way to prove that the war was still moving in its favor. Several elite brigades were deployed to the area, including motorized rifle regiments, special operations units, and artillery formations. According to Russian state media, these forces were closing in on full control of the city. But Ukrainian and Western intelligence painted a far different picture. In reality, Russia had seized only limited territory, while its forces suffered immense casualties from counterstrikes and drone ambushes. Then came the flood, both literal and strategic. The dam strike not only disrupted Russian lines, but also upended their logistics. Entire supply convoys disappeared under the rising water. Fuel depots were ruined, communications were severed, and critical roads became impassable. Military analysts describe the aftermath as one of the most disruptive single strikes in months, achieving in hours what weeks of direct combat often could not. Local Russian authorities in Belgorod scrambled to respond. The regional governor acknowledged that several towns were flooded, forcing evacuations and emergency shelter arrangements for residents. But the heaviest losses weren't civilian. They were military. Video footage soon emerged online showing submerged Russian vehicles and collapsed defensive positions. In one clip, a drenched Russian soldier joked bitterly, saying they had gone from infantry to navy overnight. Another video showed soldiers trying to dig out trucks buried in mud as water continued to rise. Satellite images released afterward confirmed widespread flooding downstream from the reservoir. Analysts identified several areas where the floodwaters had wiped out Russian fortifications entirely. What had once been an organized defensive sector was now a patchwork of isolated pockets of stranded troops. Ukrainian intelligence claimed that up to 4 Russian brigades, the 68th, 116th, 128th, and 136th, were directly affected, many of them losing contact with their headquarters. Without stable supply lines, those units are now vulnerable to Ukrainian counterattacks or forced to retreat. The operation showcased how Ukraine has adapted to the realities of modern warfare. Outgunned and outnumbered, it has had to rely on ingenuity rather than brute force. The Belgorod dam strike wasn't just a military hit, it was psychological warfare. It sent a message that no matter how large Russia's army might be, Ukraine could find creative ways to neutralize it. By weaponizing geography and timing, Ukraine turned natural elements into part of its defense strategy. For Russia, the incident is yet another setback in a war already riddled with miscalculations. Despite its immense spending, the Kremlin has struggled to achieve meaningful territorial gains. Its forces have been bogged down by logistical failures, lack of coordination, and morale issues. Even as officials in Moscow boast of success, evidence on the ground tells another story, a story of exhaustion, overextension, and growing disarray. The flood in Belgorod has only deepened that crisis. Repairing the damage to the dam will take time, perhaps weeks or even months, and until that happens, much of the surrounding terrain will remain flooded and unusable. That gives Ukraine an invaluable window to reinforce its defenses around Vovchansk and Kharkiv. Russian engineers are now racing against the clock to stabilize the dam and restore infrastructure, but constant Ukrainian drone activity in the region makes every repair attempt risky. Some reports even suggest Ukraine may strike the structure again if Russia begins to regain its footing. The event also highlights the broader imbalance in this war. Russia has relied heavily on raw firepower, tanks, artillery, and mass assaults, while Ukraine has leaned on precision, innovation, and adaptability. One side throws numbers at the problem, the other uses strategy to rewrite the rules of engagement. It's a contest not just of armies, but of mindsets. The flooding of Belgorod is symbolic of a larger truth, that the battlefield is no longer predictable. Every move now carries unseen consequences. The destruction of a single dam has created a cascade of new realities. Disrupted offensives, stranded troops, damaged morale, and shifting momentum. Ukraine turned an act of engineering destruction into a battlefield equalizer, proving once again that determination and intellect can rival raw power. As the waters continue to recede, the aftermath will reveal the full extent of the damage. But one outcome is already certain. The Belgorod strike has set back Russia's regional campaign for weeks, if not longer. What was meant to be another step forward in Moscow's so-called security zone expansion has turned into another public embarrassment. For Ukraine, it's a symbolic victory, a testament to how smart warfare can outmatch brute strength. This strike will likely be remembered as one of the most ingenious moves in the conflict so far. It demonstrated how modern wars are fought not just with missiles and tanks, but with intelligence, timing, and an unrelenting will to survive. While Russia scrambles to clean up the aftermath, Ukraine has shown the world that even under immense pressure, strategy and innovation can still flood the mightiest of enemies.